Hi guys, and welcome back to Fat Boys IC. How you going out there in the real world? We're here to blow with RC cars again. Before we start this video, remember, like, subscribe, get out there, treat me well, buy me coffee, do whatever you like. Just make sure you keep watching. Right, so this is day 2 of the make myself a touring car type video. And yesterday we made the car lovely and shiny and painted it and it looked great. There she is sitting there in all her resplendent glory. Now, what's the next step? Well, the next step is to put a new motor and ESC in there to bring her up to a sort of race spec. Now, I was contacted by a company called xc-esc. If you've never heard of them, they're quite a big company. They are well known within the medical and automotive industries, making ESCs, electrical components for medical equipment and for cars for people like Nissan and stuff like that. So they're actually a big, decent sized company. It's not a cheap rate product. Now, they contacted me and said, would you like to play with our ESC and motor? And of course, here on Fatboy RC, we're more than happy to play with anything. So we grabbed hold of that with two hands. So they sent me a motor and ESC suitable for my touring car. Now, I decided on a 3300 kV brushless, fully censored motor with 140 amp ESC, which was basically their baseline ESC, which is 2 to 4S compatible. Now, let's have a look at the motor. Now, the motor comes in this lovely packaging. Open her up, whip out the guts. There we have our fully censored 3300 kV motor from xc-esc. Now, this comes pre-bulleted. Okay, I'm not going to cut those cables down. I'm going to leave those. They are a bit long, but I'll just cable tie them up. I'm not going to cut them down because I like the factory pre-made wires. On the end there is the sensor cable. Now, the sensor cable plugs into the sensor cable on the ESC, and the ESC and the motor can communicate with each other. So that's our motor. So let's move on to the ESC and see what we've got. So straight away into the packaging again, standardised boxing. Nicely packaged in there, nice sized ESC. Let's have a look. Now, I am cheating a little bit because I have had this ESC out and done something to it. Now, these ESCs come from the factory without a battery connector. So what I've done, I've cut the wires and I've soldered a Dean's connector onto there because I'm running 2S in my touring car. You can put any connector on there you want to handle 2 to 4S battery. So there we have our 140 amp brushless ESC. As you can see, we've got the 3 already points there for the cable straight from the motor. We've also got the sensor cable. This is the cable, again, that communicates with the motor, gives us all our information. You may notice, if I hold this up there, that you've got 2 cables coming off of this ESC rather than 1. Now, one of these circuits, black and white one, goes to the ESC to draw the power, connects to the receiver. The other circuit is the bus circuit that controls things like the BEC. If you've never heard of the BEC before, it's a separate electrical circuit on your ESC which powers ancillary products like servos. So one of the things that you have when you're going around a track and you're really giving it some gunning and you're banging into a corner, the battery draws as you turn into the servo. The BEC enables a separate circuit that can be regulated, in this instance, 6 volts to 7.4 volts. I'm going to set it at 7.4 volts because the servo can take it. That will mean the servo will have a separate 7.4 volt circuit, which means it shouldn't lose power as it whacks into the corners, which would obviously be a bonus. Now, this ESC is quite a special ESC. Both the motor and the ESC are waterproof and dustproof to IP67 regulations. Obviously, this is 140 amp ESC, which is a big punch, really. You don't often need 140 amps, but it's a lovely luxury to have. One of my favourite things about this ESC is its Bluetooth compatibility, which I'm going to play with. Okay, basically, without a program card, without anything, this ESC is Bluetooth native, straight out of the box. Download the app from their website, xc-esc. Make sure you do download their version from their website as well. I did try the one from Google Play on another occasion and didn't quite get the same results. Couldn't connect a lot of the time, whereas the one straight from their website works perfectly. Right, so Bluetooth compatibility. BEC circuit, so there's a separate circuit there for the electrics. This has turbo timing, so you can set the timing on the motor. The faster you set the turbo timing, the faster the motor will rotate. You can change direction on this motor, on the motor with this, to make it counterclockwise or clockwise, depending on the need for your car. You can also, in their app, set the forward reverse, forward brake reverse, or forward brake. So you can actually change the motor settings on there. There are quite a few things you can adjust, like the punch of the motor. So if you're needing more punch, you know, that's your acceleration off point, so you can bang. So literally you can go from 1 to 12 level on there. I'm keeping it around sort of 6 level in the middle to give yourself more acceleration if you want it, or less acceleration if you want it. You can do things like adjusting the drag brake. The drag brake obviously, when you let go of the throttle, the car will start to slow automatically. If you increase the drag brake, the ESC will apply drag brake power to the motor and aid you in your slowing down. Some people like a drag brake. Some people don't like a drag brake. I like a drag brake. Okay, so I'm going to set that as well. So what we're going to do, we're going to take this motor and this ESC, and we're going to install them into our touring car here, and then we're going to have a look at the app and see what it's like. After that, we'll do another video when we go down to the track and actually use the car with this light in it, and it goes like stink. So yeah, we're going to look forward to that, aren't we? So first of all, you're going to need a few tools to do this. You are going to need some screwdrivers for your engine mount. You're going to need some tape to tape down your ESC, and you're going to need some patience for when it all goes wrong, as it always does. But you know, I'm a very patient man, so I don't mind. I'm going to do it. Okay, so let's start by installing the motor in the car. Now, this car, which is a Team Durango DHEC 410, has a fully belt-driven system. Okay, so with this motor, you only really get a bottom mount. Now, when you're buying a brushless motor, if you buy a cheap brushless motor, you'll find that it only has 4 holes in the end of the can. Now, decent motors always tend to default to 6 holes in the end of the can. So these are for your mounting your engine mount in your car. If you haven't got the 6 holes, you're going to find it very difficult to mount it into a belt-driven car with a bottom mount motor. Yeah? Right. Of course, what you are going to need is a pinion gear. Now, pinion gears differ from car to car. I'm sure you would have a pinion gear that is compatible with the teeth on your spur gear. Now, if you don't know what they are, refer to the user manual. Ask in your model shop. Okay, this one's a 48 DP 32 tooth one, and it's going straight onto the standardized 65 tooth there. So these are both 48 DP. So there are other different DPs. Okay, so make sure you check it out, or you will start stripping gears. Obviously, when you're installing a pinion gear onto a motor, you will find that you probably can't make it out on the screen, but the pinion, yes you can, the pinion gear goes onto this here, this pinion here, and you can see it's got a flat edge. On your pinion gear, you will have a little grub screw. The little grub screw lines up with the flat edge. Push it on, then you can do up the screw. Once you do up the screw, your pinion gear is on and you're ready to go in. Obviously, if you screw it onto the curve rather than onto the flat. Under load, you're eventually going to strip out. So it will spin on the pinion. Right, so here we have our motor. And down here, I have the screw for the motor. Now, first thing to do is to line your motor up. Now, be aware of where your wires are. Right, we've got one screw in there. So if you then pivot that around on that screw, you'll find that you can find the other hole. Right. So our motor screws are now in. That allows me to move my motor to and fro. Okay, so what I want to do, get it into a position where I think it's going to be meshed. Right, am I right? No, way too tight. Right, can you hear this? Way too tight. You want a little tiny bit of play, so just loosen your screws back off slightly. Right, so now you've got your motor mount in there. Okay, she's lined up. So hold your spur gear. Tiny little knock. Basically, I've got a really fine amount of play in there. See, that fine amount of play will allow it to not strip the cog. If you've got too much play, it will take the teeth off. If you've got it too tight, it will strip the thing completely out. And you do not want to do that. All right? But basically, those two screws under here are the motor mount. So the motor is literally mounted in the car straight away. That's quite a quick thing to do, yeah? Right. So now you're going to want to move on to your ESC. Now, this ESC and motor are totally compatible with each other. They come from the same manufacturer, so I know that. Obviously, check your motor compatibility before you go sticking it all in. Right, luckily enough, this motor is labelled A, B, C, and D, A, B, C on the wires, and this ESC is loaded A, B, and C. So what you want to do is make sure you put the corresponding wire into the corresponding hole so that you don't fry your ESC. There's A, that's going into the A hole, A hole. This is B, guess where that's going? Up the B hole. And then C goes into the C hole, okay? That's connected. Then we have our sensor wire. Now a sensor wire has two arrows to line up. Push the two arrows together, pop. The sensor wire is now put in. The next stage is to obviously tape the ESC down and plug in all of the cables to the receiver. Let me just grab some tape. Right, I run a graphics company in my day-to-day job, so I have a lot of this tape knocking around. This is we actually call it road tape, doing road signs, but it's actually the same type of stuff that ESCs and things get taped down with nowadays. It's a high bond tape. It's a copy of the 3M stuff. 3M are like a main manufacturer of high bond tape. So you just literally whack a bit on the bottom like that. There comes a tricky part of getting the actual backing off the bloody stuff. There you go. Backing's off, tape's on. Locate your ESC where you want it to go. I'm going straight up against the servo here because I'm a bit limited on my real estate. And I push down because it's pressure sensitive activation. So you push down, your ESC is in the car. You've then obviously got your power button knocking around. So you're going to want to repeat the process with your power button. A little bit of tape on the back. Right. So the power button is now taped in. The ESC is now taped in. So now we turn to the wires. Now, on this one, you want to put the BEC cable in the for the ESC goes into channel 2, and the cable for the BEC, the bus system, goes into channel 3. Now, I also in this car have a transponder because it's set up for racing transponders and what does all your lap time and everything. So that's going into channel 4. You probably haven't got one of those unless you are into racing. Right. So it's in there. It's a bit messily in there at the moment, but it's in there. Now the next thing to do is obviously connect a battery, making sure your wires are clear of your wheels and stuff. Connect a battery. Now this particular car, Team Durango, I've got a 6200 2S going in there. Got some Velcro strapping. I got that there. Beep, beep. She's booting up. You may well be able to hear that the car is now beeping, waiting for some radio gear. So I turn on my radio gear. It stopped beeping. There you go. So we've got a motor and an ESC in the car, right? And we haven't played with anything on the Bluetooth yet, but if I put that up to the screen, watch the wheels. We are ballooning the tyres on low profile slicks. That's a lot of power for a little car. Right, so the next bit I'm going to do, I'm just going to tidy the cables up. Okay, I'll go off screen to do that. Once I tidy the cables up, we'll then play with this app and see what you think of the app. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So anyway, let's put it down there. Turn off the power to the old Durango. Turn that off, and I'll get the cables on it and be back in a second. See you in a minute. Right, so the cables are now sort of tightened up inside there, tidied up a little bit out of the way, and I'm sure you will do that your own way. I just use cable ties. Okay, now I've just downloaded the XC-Link app straight from the xc-esc website. As you can see, when the default install comes, it's actually in Chinese, which is no surprise. These are a Chinese company. Now, if you don't speak Chinese, me too. If you look at the icons, you'll see that this one has got the universal recognized one for settings. Click on the settings icon, and up there it will literally say language. You click on it and select English, and it is now in English. So you go back in and you get this screen. Now on this screen, this is where the magic happens. Up the top there, press the Bluetooth, right, and it'll come up with scanned devices. There's the one there, xc-esc, boom, connect that. It will start to connect to the car. Okay, it's now connected to the ESC on the car. If you click the parameters button, that will take you into all the customizable options on the ESC. Now the top one is running mode. So the running mode, the standard running mode for an RC car is forward, brake, reverse. So if you buy an RTR ready to run car, it will forward, it will brake. You'll have to hit the throttle backwards twice to get it to go backwards. Racing people, they don't like reverse. They like forward and brake. That's it. Okay, they don't like reverse because they think reversing can be dangerous. So a lot of racers will set theirs to forward and brake. Normally that's a matter of doing jumpers or beeps on the ESC. It can be a right pain in the bum. And with this one, you literally press a button and you choose the option you want. Now I'm going to put this in forward, brake, reverse as standard. Then it will do the lipo cells. Okay, on the next menu option is lipo cells. Set to auto. Okay, you can set this one to 2, 3, or 4S. I will leave it on auto because, no, actually, I'm going to change it to 2S because my batteries for this car are all 2S. Now, the next option on the screen is BEC. Now, BEC is the separate electrical circuit I talked about earlier. This one's set to 6 volts at the moment. The servo can handle 7.4. The battery is 7.4. So I'm going to leave it, put it to 7.4. The cutoff voltage is at 3.2 volts. I'm going to leave that. Yep, if there's an under voltage, it will cut out. Motor rotation is clockwise, and on there again, clockwise, counterclockwise. You decide. It depends on your car. Brake force. Now the maximum brake force is set to 60%. So the maximum brake force, that's the most it will use, is 60%. Maximum reverse force is 25%. So it's only going to go quarter speed backwards. I can set that all the way up to 100, I think. Yes, 100% I can set that up to if I want to. So I've got all that control there. Acceleration, that's your punch. Now this is set to level 6, which is right in the middle. If you prefer a slower acceleration away from the spot, turn it down. If you're a nutter and you want to go really fast, turn it up. Drag brake force. Now, maximum brake force and drag brake force, two different things. The drag brake force is when I let go of my controller, it will naturally brake. It will brake on its own. The drag brake force is default to 2%. If you prefer a higher force on your drag brake, turn it up. Turned up. Okay, turbo timing. I'm leaving this as standard. The faster you set the turbo timing to, which is 0 all the way up to 26 different increments of speed. The more turbo timing you put onto it, the faster the motor rotates. You've got the initial throttle force. That is when you initially squeeze the trigger. You can set that from 1% to 10%. The default on this one is 3%. Okay. What else have we got on there? So the other side are system pairing sides of it. So once you've changed your settings, which I have, you'll notice there's a little save button. So we save that. It says save success. It's now programmed the ESC with the settings that I have decided to keep. I can import settings, I can export settings, I can reset the settings to default literally at the press of the reset button. I can undo my last change by pressing undo. Also, when you go into this, you can see there is the reboot option, firmware upgrade version, which I did, do a firmware update, enter upgrade. Oh, and it says it is upgraded. So it's actually found a firmware upgrade, and it is upgrading the firmware as we speak. So it's literally doing it for you. Now, a lot of this stuff is sort of professional level kind of stuff to mess around with, but because of how easy it is with this particular ESC, it's quite a nice thing to play around with. I mean, if you've played around with any of the older type of ESCs and program cards and things like that, it can be quite difficult because you do have to sort of go on a list of lights and beeps and things like that. Right, do you hear that beep then? That beep was just telling me the firmware is now fully upgraded. Okay, and then you've got data record. Now, I like this one because you click data record and it will actually start recording live data from the ESC. And at the moment, it's recording that the ESC is going very slow. So, watch this. So, if I then car's doing a bit of a dance back then. Right, okay. Yeah, how slow it was in reverse then. So I'm recording all that data. Obviously, sitting on here showing you guys an ESC and a motor, the data is irrelevant. Irrelevant, I hear you say. But of course, if you're in a race situation, you might want to know a bit more of the data, so you would have a play with that. And then, right, obviously, once you do that, you come out. Okay. I like to, as standard, now reboot the ESC. It doesn't say you've got to, but I like to turn the ESC off like so. Just notice the cable tie I haven't cut. All right, turn the ESC back on. That way you know all your changes are made. If you really want to get into it, turn your controller off and on again. Wait for them to connect. Steering's nice and quick. Nice. Nice. So that, my friends, is looking pretty duffy and powerful, wouldn't you say? Oh, makes a nice hair dryer. Shame I ain't got any hair. Right, so there you go. So the ESC and the motor are installed in the car. We've upgraded the firmware. We played with the app. I want to play with an ape. Play with the app. Okay. So as you can see, we got a decent motor. So we got brushless 3300 fully censored motor. It's got precision bearings as usual in a high quality motor, anti-explode type of device as in the high quality motor. We've got a very special ESC sitting there, 140 amps of punching power. We've got on there, again, anti-sparking technology. We've got cut-offs. One of the good things about it, intelligent fan systems. It's got an intelligent cooling system. So rather than just on a cheaper ESC where the fan is on or off, we've got a fan that comes on and regulates temperature and goes off again and saves battery power. We've got the BEC circuit. The BEC circuit, as I mentioned earlier, is the separate electrical circuit that will help you run things like your servos. Okay, so there you go. xc-esc into my touring car. So the next step will be to take the touring car down to Medway RC Raceway, which has been new and improved, and give it a few flying laps around there and probably break it because I'm good at that. But we'll see what the car really can do with this new motor in it. Now, I'm thinking big things probably because that is punching some power. Right, like, subscribe. Watch the next video when I'm down the track. I'll see you next time. From me, it's goodbye.